Hello everyone, welcome back to Infinity Wealth. Dr. Martin Patel here. Okay, in this video, what I'm going to be talking about is the actions that you should be taking in response to the economic conditions that we've got and the forthcoming recessions. Everyone is interested in property, but like I said in my last video, the best actions to take sometimes is to actually hold back, sit in your hands and let the market develop and come in your favor. Okay, so this video, I'm really going to be talking about residential property. I can't cover everything, so I'll be doing another video as well. The main thing about residential property or any property that you buy, your profit in property is really made by your purchase price. So because it's made by your purchase price and the price that you agree to pay, it's often better to buy at the bottom of the market or the cycle rather than judging it whether it is the bottom or not. Lots and lots of gurus out there, lots and lots of property people who are trying to sell courses at the moment, all saying the same thing, you know, never been a great time to buy a property. Well, let me give you a real world example. I have been in property for a long time, so most of you who've been watching this, you'll understand the 2008 recession. Okay, so I was in property in 2008, and I will tell you, any savvy investor will tell you when the downturn occurred, London actually swung up quite quickly, which we were all surprised about. It was only in the lulls for about 6 months, but the rest of the country took a very, very long time. I was still picking up deals in 2012, and that's 3 years after the financial crisis. I was still picking up the deals then. This current market is not going to be any different. So if you rush to buy right now, what you will see in the media is, you know, oh, house price or house sales jump. Yeah, there has been a lot of pent-up demand. Obviously, lots of houses have been sold, but they can't complete. Surveys can't be done. So those will all come in. And the early figures will give you an indication that, hey, you know, property price, everything's okay. Property prices are going back up. That's not the case. Okay, that is not going to be the case. So don't jump in. It's better to wait. So in the residential section, remember, please write this down. The price that you pay will determine your profit in property. So in residential, let's talk about residential, the different forms of residential that you can have. You can have buy-to-lets, you can have HMOs, you can have service accommodation, you can have social housing, you can have flat conversions, you can do developments. So I'm not going to be talking about developments, and you can have commercial property. I'm not going to be talking about commercial property or developments. I'm going to save that for a different video. But what I do want to talk about is if you are new to property, or you've been in property for the last 2 years or 3 years, you may have done a course in rent to rent, or you may have done a course in service accommodation. Okay, these are the industries that I feel will be affected. The reason why they will be affected is, if you can imagine, let's cover rent to rent. If you can imagine, if you've agreed a rental price for a house and you've turned it into an HMO or service accommodation and you're paying the landlord a guaranteed rent, you have to make sure that your units are fully occupied. Generally, you know, most of these units have to be 5 and above, really, and you tend to make your main profit off the last 2 units or last 1 unit. So be mindful of the fact that you have to be fully occupied in order to make the money in a rent-to-rent situation. Now, if you are in a rent-to-rent situation and you are finding it quite hard at the moment and you're not getting that turnover that's occurring, look at the lease that you've signed, discuss with the landlords. After all, you know, landlords are happy if they can accommodate you. Look at the what you're getting. Don't bury your head in the sand and say, well, they'll come. I'll just wait it out. I'll wait it out. Give it a little bit of time, but not too long. Speak to your landlord. First thing, see if you can actually break the lease. If you want to break the lease, see if you can break the lease. If it's not working, it's better to save the money and keep it in your pocket. The other thing that you can potentially do is discuss with the landlord a rent reduction. and explain to him that, you're not getting as many people in. Can I have a rent reduction? Because you may be tied into that lease, unfortunately. But it's time to actually speak to the landlord. Now, as far as service accommodation is concerned, like I said to you in my last video, the main problem that service accommodation is going to have, and everyone was talking about it, all the gurus, all the courses were talking about it. Service accommodation makes lots of money, in a certain area and certain climate. Not all service accommodations make lots and lots of money. So if you've got a service accommodation, you've already done it out. If it's a holiday let, it's completely different, right? Holiday lets, because more people will be in the UK, will be holidaying in the UK because they can't travel out. So that's going to be okay. Eventually when the ban is lifted, more people will holiday in the UK. But service accommodation, what you have to look at, and you've provided service accommodations in certain cities, the hotels in those cities will be coming back online, and they will be offering discounts. Now, those hotels, they're big, so you can do more social distancing. The only way, if you've got service accommodation, is to say to your clients, well, actually, I disinfect every room after every client leaves. I disinfect all the work surfaces, and give them safety or that feeling of security if they were to rent in your service accommodation, that they will be able to feel comfortable in there. Now, I don't think that service accommodation will be great. Okay, it won't be great. So if you're finding it quite difficult in service accommodation and you're finding it quite difficult to rent the rooms, then the best thing to do is to reevaluate your strategy. We talked about the different strategies. So it's a case of reevaluating the strategies. You may find, do your own due diligence to see if there is demand for HMOs in that area. If there isn't demand for HMOs and you're finding that a lot of HMOs are empty, you can pick up the phone and you can phone landlords and say, look, I've seen your advert. By the way, I just want to pick your brains. What is it like? Are you many? And I'll tell you the real world truth. In London, landlords are going to be struggling because most of the sector most of the people that we house are working in various service industries like food, restaurants and things like that. They may not necessarily be opening up. Like I said to you, some of them have gone home. So if you're in London, I think it may be a slightly different look at your strategy. So one of the strategies that you can look at is maybe turning into an HMO. Not necessarily for London, but maybe outside London. Have a look. If that's not working in paper and you find after your research it's not working, well, then convert it back into a buy-to-let. The other thing that you can do, and I'll give you at the end of the video, something that you can do, which is not a glorified strategy, and most people are not talking about it because it's not sexy, right? But at the end of the day, in Infinity Wealth, we believe in maintaining your wealth, keeping your wealth together, and just the main thing that you have to work with at this moment in time is actually working more towards keeping what you've got, keeping the cash flow that you've got, rather than trying to expand too quickly and making mistakes. If you're new, that's fine. You can spend a lot of time on your laptop researching different areas, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so that's service accommodation. Have a look to see how you can turn it around, maybe apply it to a different strategy. Okay, the next one that we will talk about is buy-to-lets. Now, you might be reading in the press, I was in Kent where I've got properties, and I was speaking to a very good friend of mine there, social distancing, and we were talking, he was saying a lot of his tenants now are going on to universal credit. That is exactly what we're going to find. We're going to find that people have been laid off, and unfortunately, they can't meet their rent payments, but also they're going on to universal credit as well. So if you've got a buy-to-let, you may find it, and this is one of the strategies that I'll talk about. You may find that your tenants want want to go into universal credit. That's fine. Work with them. Buy-to-let at this moment in time is probably the best strategy. Instead of trying to knock the ball out of the park, it's better to actually, if you're going to buy low, right? And to buy low, you will have to wait at least 5-6 months before all this washes out and the real downturn in the economy is realised all of a sudden, and it comes home to roost with everyone. Okay, so that's buy-to-let. The other one that I told you about is social housing. Now, this is not the sexiest strategy out there, but it's the best in this current market. I'll tell you why it's the best current market. Unfortunately, a lot of people have been made redundant. They will have to have social housing, okay? Councils in London, so if you're based in London, you may find it more beneficial to actually phone up some of the London councils and say to them, look, and they give you finder's fees. A lot of the London councils like Brent, Ealing, they give you finder's fees. They give you about £2,000 if you give your house over to them for social housing. So there'll be a greater demand for social housing. I know it's not sexy. I know all the gurus not talk about it, but this is real world. This is what the professionals look at. The professionals are looking at, okay, where is there a gap? Where can I fill that gap? One of the gaps is social housing, and we will cover that. In due time, I'll cover how to do the social housing. So perhaps if your service accommodation is not working, you've looked at HMOs, that's not going to quite work. At the end of the day, you've got to rent it out. Look at maybe buy to let or doing social housing. That's the best way to do it. When you're doing it fully furnished, your rental amount will be a lot higher as well. So have a look at those strategies. Don't bury your head in the sand saying, well, they'll come, because every month that goes by, you are having to expense all that out. Okay, so just be mindful of that. HMOs. Okay, so the other strategy is HMOs. I watched a video, someone saying, HMOs are going to be big. HMOs are going to be big because people are going to be moving around, because they've been made redundant, so they're going to go different areas. That is true, but it's a double-edged sword. It may be in your area, there's been a lot of redundancies. So if there've been a lot of redundancies, you don't want to buy an HMO there, because the problem is that you haven't got enough people and demand in that area. So it's a double-edged sword. In other areas, so I'll give you a perfect example. Ashford in Kent, Google and a few of the tech companies were talking about, and they were also talking about in London, but they've put a complete hold on that. We're talking about opening up a site in Ashford. To bring in jobs. I think it was something like 1,800 jobs, which I read on Kent Online. So this is what you need to look for. You need to look for areas where there is, new job creation coming in, but stay away from areas where job creation is being decimated, okay? Because you're going to find it very hard. So when they talk about HMO strategy, they don't give you all that. They're just trying to sell you a course. Now is not the time necessarily to do the course, because if you do the course now, by the time you come to implement it, you'll probably forget what you need to do. The better time is to actually investigate on your laptop different areas. So one of the things is, if you boot up your laptop, have a look within, let's say, a 50-mile radius of where you live to see what house prices are doing. Now, you need to stay on top of the market to see what house prices are doing and what the trends are. One of the ways to do that is on Rightmove. You can set up alerts, so you can constantly monitor how the house prices are, if they're dropping, what they're doing when they're dropping. So keep an eye on things like that, basic stuff that you can do at home, right? If you want to find out more about HMOs, we'll cover that as well. But HMO, obviously, that strategy, it will only work in certain areas. Yes, there'll be demand in certain areas. There'll be a demand drop off in other areas. So you want to make sure that that doesn't happen. When I did it in 2012 and I had the HMOs and everything else, it took a lot longer to rent the HMOs. HMO strategies, there are different ones. There's student HMOs, there's professional HMOs, there's social housing HMOs. I've done all three. Okay, social housing HMOs, they're good, especially in this type of climate, but they are very labor intensive, and you've really got to have that mindset. With social housing at the moment, it's going to be in big demand, which no one is talking about, but that's going to be the biggest demand at the moment. Okay, I hope you found the video very useful. In my next set of videos, what I want to talk about is commercial property, and I want to also talk about developments and what to do. So I hope I've given you some inspiration and insight on what to do at this moment in time. Not to panic, but not necessarily to just sit at home. Don't buy anything. Now is the time to actually do your research, see how the trend is going, because you won't be too late. And there's another phrase that I would like you to write down, is that whenever you go to a party, you don't ever want to be the first one at the party, because there's no one there to talk to. But when you arrive late at the party, you still enjoy it, and there's lots more people to talk to. Okay, so don't try and jump the gun. Be mindful of what's going on, and just monitor the market. Above all, price that you pay will reflect the profit that you make. Okay, all right, hope you found it useful. Please don't forget to like, because the search engines in YouTube, obviously, the more people like it, the better, higher up it will go. And also subscribe in the bell down below. And if you can, please share the content with other people that you think you might find it useful. Thank you for listening, guys, and I'll speak to you in the next video. Bye.